Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dorothy Taylor.
Hi, and I'm Emmeline Muldoon.
I'm from Chiron's Astrology.
And I'm with Emmeline's Astrology, and we get together to do these wonderful videos. So we're really excited to see you all again.
We didn't do that introduction very well, but that's okay. You guys will get the information you need. Okay, so today the topic is Pluto through the houses.
Yes, we just did a wonderful video with Saturn going into Pisces, and we got some really good feedback. And obviously this month's busy with Pluto moving into Aquarius, sort of passing the baton to each other, these planets. So we thought we would help you all with some information on how that's going to affect your birth chart.
And the first bit of information to give you is it's going to take approximately 1.5 years for Pluto to completely transition into Aquarius, because it's going to retrograde back and forth into Capricorn. This time around in Aquarius, he will go back and forth between Aquarius and Capricorn from March 23rd to November 19th, 2024. Actually, yes, November 19th, 2024. The last time he was in Aquarius was 1777 to 1797, 98. And the next time he'll be in Aquarius is 2269. Not used to those numbers that are so far out. So no one alive has experienced Pluto in Aquarius unless you are over 248 years old, and none of us are. So this will be a new experience for all of us, and a lot of people dread Pluto. Pluto is known as the change and transformation planet, but a lot of the things that change or transform are things that have needed to for quite a while. And so there's not necessarily a need to dread it as much as there is a need to allow the changes that are coming. That will help this to go a lot easier for each of us. Emmeline was saying earlier that we just need to kind of go with the flow. And right now we have so much in transition, with Saturn changing signs and Pluto also changing signs, and Mars ending its retrograde phase, that March is going to be one of those months where everyone should just take a deep breath and let things shift and start moving forward. That'll help us all to kind of acclimate to the new environment for Saturn and Pluto.
Yes, I think with Pluto, the best piece of advice seems to always be, don't resist, because change is coming. Change is in the wind with Pluto. And so the more you try to push back against that change and try and keep things the same, the change just keeps coming your way, but it gets stronger in a way. So the best thing to do is, if you see change come in, be open to the change.
Yep, change is inevitable.
Yes, that's true.
And we've had a lot going on while Pluto was in Capricorn, and Saturn and Jupiter were back in Capricorn when COVID-19 happened. So we're moving on from that. I say moving on, but it's kind of a continuing story as well. So anybody that's been desirous of change, it is here.
Yes, that's true.
So let it show you what it's going to be about. And the best thing to do for March, since everything is going to be moving so fast, is just to observe, be an observer. Observe what's going on, observe the direction, the patterns. Aquarius is a lot about patterns. And recognize the patterns that are being put into place. And if it's a negative pattern, then that's a sign there's a change that needs to take place. If it's a positive pattern that's coming, and positive and negative patterns, they can switch pretty easily. If it's a positive pattern, let it go, let it come. but notice what the pattern of what is happening more than any single event. Notice the patterns.
Yeah, it's good to sometimes with astrology sit back and observe and see how it's affecting us all. This is a very busy month.
March will be one of those months. Although on the 16th, March 16th, Mars is finally going to be past his post retrograde. And
Yes.
so things are going to start moving pretty quickly because
Yes.
Mars has been kind of pent up and not allowed to use all of his motivation or use all of his will. And so now that's going to move up really fast.
And then on March 25th, he'll move into a new sign finally. He's been in Gemini since August, so that's going to also you're going to feel the energy shift. So that last week of March is big for us all.
So for each of these charts, we've created a sample chart of famous people for us to look at with the ascendant that we want, which puts, for the first one, it puts Pluto in the first house, and then we'll go around the chart in this direction. I'll try to mark the video so that you know when we're talking about which house. And we're not talking about the Pluto that's in your natal chart. We're talking about the Pluto that's in transit.
Yes, that's really, really important to let people know that, because it can be confusing when you're first starting to understand astrology.
And as it is going through Aquarius and Abraham Lincoln's example, it's going to trigger a lot of his natal energy. And this will be true for you as well. Whatever he's making contact with by aspect, he will have an effect on that portion of your personality, your life, your expression of who you are. So Pluto is in the first house here. And I'm wondering if you would like to tell us what the first house is about, Emily.
Yeah, so when you Pluto is trying to get us to evolve for the better, change for the good. But in that process, it can be quite painful, difficult sometimes. But when you're thinking about this right there on the first house, this is about you. This is about yourself. We're looking at a process of self-improvement. When it hits that ascendant, that's going to be the particularly busy time. But also, it goes through the house. It's going to be moving through Aquarius for the next 20 years. So this is a long-term transit. This is not just, we're going to see the effects of this in the next year or two. It's there to stay. But what it's doing when it's going through the first house is saying, you might need to look at yourself and examine what things need to change in order to make the good changes that flow after. So, karma is also a big part of Pluto as well. So there might be someone looking at that. But I think Pluto on the ascendant is one of the most difficult ones to handle, because it really is bringing in a whole new way of thinking and a whole new outlook that you're going to go through during this time. So, you might think from clients that I've seen that have had this happen, it will never happen to me. I won't live long enough, but you're not the same after the period of this change. You think differently, you maybe behave differently, you might have a different desires and different wants, but remember that it's trying to get you to the good. So it's not that you're changing and the bad things are coming to you. It's trying to leave you better than it found you.
It can help you find purpose by having such a huge impact on your identity and how you present yourself to the world. But Pluto has a lot to do with emotional attachments as well. So what parts of your identity, who you present yourself to be, are you emotionally attached to, and why? Because those will be the things that are affected here in the first house. So if you have this idea about yourself that maybe isn't true, or
Mhm.
even, you know, with Aquariuses are unique individuals. There's no two Aquariuses alike. They're unique individuals. And maybe you've been a rebel in the past and you're one of these Aquariuses that walk around that have piercings and all of this stuff to show your uniqueness, which nothing wrong with all of that. But maybe you've decided to transform into some sort of corporate guru, and now you need to be more business-like. So not that people with tattoos can't be business-like, but there's a normal type of protocol that you would need to adhere to. And that may happen easily, or it may come through difficulty. For instance, not getting jobs that you want because you wear your big old nose ring into the interview and they're not into that. So it can be as simple as that, something you could change easily, or it can be more profound. And with Pluto, it is usually deep. So if you think you've gotten deep enough, go deeper.
Yeah, it does definitely go, it definitely goes deep. And it's your chance, I think, with this energy for how do you want to work with it. I think if you take a negative spin with it, then it can just go down that hole. But if you that spiral, if you're bringing about the changes for good, then it's really a very powerful time to bring about those changes.
And reorient your thoughts about Pluto. Pluto has a bad rap.
Yes,
We're aware of that. But Pluto is your friend. He is helping you to transform into your own power.
Yes.
So anything that needs to change, he will help you change. And if you go along with the changes that he thinks need to be made in order for you to be more powerful, more yourself, live more authentically, then that's great. If you don't, he's going to keep pushing until you do, until you agree, or at least maybe begrudgingly, but start enacting the changes that he feels like you need to make.
Yeah,
So
he's saying, I tried to show you the nice way. I'm trying to show you everything. And like an example could be if Pluto's trying to suggest, I want you to change jobs. And he's like, look at this opportunity, look at that opportunity, and you're resisted and you're thinking, no, I don't know. And then in the end, it can come along and say, okay, now your job's gone because I want you to do the next job. That can be an example of like how the resisting can go for some people. I think the other thing about Pluto being on the ascendant is it's opposite the descendant. So at this time, you might feel like you want to try and control the other people around your life, but try not to indulge in that.
So, we've mentioned before, this is a circle. So wherever any planet is, it has an effect on all of the other houses. And Pluto on the first house, because is at a square to the most public part of the chart and at a square to the most private. So chances are, as your identity transforms, so will your home, and so will your job. And so will your relationships, because this is an opposition. And none of that it will feel comfortable because they're all at a hard angle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible to do it without so much turmoil.
Yeah, and it's not like Pluto has just started moving, in your chart. You've had Pluto going around some part of your chart all your life. So think about it like that, because I think that can take comfort. If when we talk about this video, some, or transits for people, they go, oh, Pluto's moving into this part. So that means this is bad for me, because but Pluto's always moving around a part of your chart. So you're always dealing with Pluto. It's just that in different ways of dealing with it. And that's what this video is trying to show you.
And Pluto is exceedingly slow, but this is a rare change. So rare that the last time it happened was 248 years ago. But Pluto is a very slow mover. And what happens with slow movers in astrology is they have an effect on an entire generation. So when we talk about Pluto being in Aquarius, there's going to be an effect on everyone. Children born right now will have Pluto in Aquarius. And Aquarius represents groups, social networks, that sort of thing. So our social networks will transform, groups we belong to will transform, even humanity could transform, and probably will. So not all of the changes will come around very quickly because Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. So it kind of happens in what we call the background. When it triggers one of your planets, like now Pluto's triggering Abraham Lincoln's ascendant, that's when you have a personal experience with Pluto. And it can be at any angle, any aspect in the chart, but we're only going to talk about Pluto through the houses. Okay.
Yes, if you are having Pluto hit an angle or a planet, that might be a good time to think about having an astrology reading, because you will feel the effect of the Pluto transit more intensely if it is making an aspect to a planet or a sensitive point in your chart.
You ready for the next one?
Yes, second house. Okay.
So this is Pluto in the second house, and Pluto in the second house. The second house, first of all, is about your personal resources, financial, material, but also about your self-esteem, your self-worth. All of those things fall under the purview of the second house. And so with Pluto going through the second house, there's a chance you need to change something about either your financial situation, your personal resources. And it may be because there is this possibility of destruction and rebirth. Remember that always with Pisces. And the old saying, when one door closes, another opens. Pluto could bring about an experience where you have to seriously consider what you value. And if it's been material possessions all your life or financial gain, that may shift for you, and it may become more about the people in your life, the groups you belong to, the associations you have.
Yep, it's trying to make a change in your personal value system somehow. And once it makes that change, once the breakdown happens, the new begins. That's kind of, Pluto, isn't it? Like death and rebirth, the transformation process. So there will be a transformation in some way in your personal values that could be connected to your income or your possessions. For an example, your income might change, or you might have to put money into possessions, like if you own a property or something like that. But once the change has taken place and you have a different outlook on your personal values, then you just start building on it. So it's not that you're doomed to poverty, because people, I think, sometimes think when they see Pluto and see a house, they go, oh, doomed to no money during this time. That's not right. It's just trying to break down how you maybe view money, or what your views are, what your values are, and then get you to a different place.
And really strengthen both your value systems and your personal resources. And personal resources could even include the talents you have. So you could, if you fancy yourself an artist, but you're working a corporate job, not doing the artist thing, Pluto could transform you so that you are able to do the artist thing. A lot of people do become interested in other avenues of self-expression during this time, because they find talents that have been latent within them for a long time. And that doing what you love increases your sense of value and self-worth, although it may or may not bring wealth. Pay attention to your personal resources as in material resources. You could need to repair or revamp some of them. And that, of course, could cost money. But once you do, like for instance, if you remodel a house, transform a house into something that's falling down to being worthy of being sold or lived in, then that would be a Pluto transformation for that property. And you may then have an opportunity to sell it and increase your personal resources. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. And it just is, Pluto is bringing you to a point of having power over your personal resources, having, now, if you try to get in a power and control struggle over your personal resources, that could be a problem. You might have difficulty getting bank loans for the renovations you're doing on a home, something like that. Don't get in a power and control struggle over money. Don't get in a power and control struggle over your self-worth. No one can be you but you. You are worthy of being you. Are you ready for the next one?
Yep, third house. Third house is really our everyday environment, everyday conversations, the people that we surround ourselves with. So when we're younger, this can be our siblings. When we're older, this could be our neighbors. So the people that we come into contact with on a day-to-day basis. So Pluto is shaking up a big part of our lives when it's shaking up the feeling of making a change with our day-to-day life. And it might be that it might interfere with your routine or your day-to-day actions in a way that it hasn't done before. You might find that this is a period to go within and examine your belief system in some way as well. Your everyday beliefs, they might be up for change as well. So think about how you're living your life right now. And a lot of the time, I think with the third house, when we have transits going through that part, we can really go deep because we're preparing for it to hit the IC at a later date. So it's sort of reviewing what is in what we really want, what's important. And if we haven't made significant changes with house 1 and house 2, then it's a lot of the time that these changes come in now with the house 3.
So the first house and the second house is who am I? The second house is what resources do I have to be me? And the third house is about your ideas about the community. But if you have a third house Pluto now, you have Aquarius in the third house, and that is a broader local environment than the average person, right? So because it's group associations. So it could be that you're really good with communicating to groups, and Pluto brings that out in the environment that you're in. You might find that you become closer to a larger environment and it feels like a local environment. Aquarius represents, like I said, groups and even humanity, but you could start giving public speeches. You could become a powerful persuader. And that is one of, but the ideas, the change in ideas comes from you discovering who you are and what you have, those latent talents or whatever here, what you really value. Then the ideas change. Now, remember, this is such a slow mover, right? That you've had Pluto in Sagittarius already. If you're 40 years old, you've had Pluto in Capricorn since 2008, and now it's going into Aquarius. So you have been on this journey for a while. You're just getting ready for your ideas and your communication style, your perception style, to change into something that better fits who you are.
You might learn a lot as well. As a third house theme with what we're paying attention to, what we're learning over this time. And also, traveling on trips that are short distances might prove to give you some information about what changes you need to make. or that
Pluto
maybe
does have a lot to do with the hidden secrets, that kind of thing. So you may develop a perception for ferreting out those truths to understand when someone's communication style is deceptive, or learn secrets that you hadn't been privy to before. Are we ready for the next? Are we ready for the fourth house?
Yes, moving to the fourth house. This is you know, right there on that sensitive point, if it's hitting the IC, that is a very internal area, very inward part of us. It's our inner emotions that we don't necessarily share with other people, that other people don't see. So with Pluto going through that part, it's stirring up your emotions within. And it might also be that you're pulling out issues or working with stuff from your childhood, because it can be linked to the childhood. And it might be that actually you're working with stuff with your parents or your roots, your family, that type of energy as well. Quite simply, it could just be the physical home that you're in, because it represents the house of home as well. So it might be that there's changes afoot within where you live, or structure of where you live. You might want to revamp it, or you might have to revamp it for a certain reason. So look towards those areas when you think about the fourth house of Pluto.
Or the boundaries within what you call home could be changing. You know, when we think about family, we think about our mom, our dad, our brothers or sisters, those types of things. But with Aquarius in there, you naturally, in the fourth house, you naturally have a broader, you may have, you know, a zillion cousins like I do. And you consider yourself a relative, or that's where they are as home to you.
Mm-hmm.
You may broaden that even more. So now you're a citizen of the United States and that's home, right? Maybe you broaden that to, I'm a citizen of North America. In your mind, you're becoming aware that you belong to a larger group, and that is transforming for you. You know, you would think most Aquarians already know they're part of a larger group, since Aquarius represents humanity, but it could be that they just haven't been aware of how they actually fit in to the larger group. So you're becoming more powerful emotionally with how to deal with larger groups, right? We've come through here, our ideas and thoughts have changed. Now it's in the fourth house. And emotionally, you are understanding, I'm sorry, let me change that. Intellectually, you are understanding the emotional aspects of your group, your family more. So what does that mean? Emotional intelligence. And Aquarius is super intelligent. So emotional intelligence for an Aquarian is on a different level than it is for everyone else. And Pluto, you may or may not have realized just how much emotional intelligence you have. But because this is coming home to you, you're going to be able to be very persuasive as far as understanding emotions go. But of course, for that to happen, you first have to connect with your own emotions. And this is, you know, what attachments do you have with your family or your group? On the negative side, you're very dogmatic and no one else belongs. On the positive side, everybody's your brother or your sister, right? I've always been fascinated how religious groups will a lot of times call people they don't even know Brother John, or, you know, they're really, they feel connected to them. And your connections to others is going to take on a new emotional value, and you're going to have experiences that bring that home to you.
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Yep. House number 5. With
Oh,
Pluto moving into the fifth house. Now, this is our fun house. This is our recreational. Oh my God.
recreational.
I'm not even going to do that right now. Yes, the fun house, the house where we want to create, the house where we want to play, the house of love affairs, the house of our children, the house of all those fun things. And Pluto is going through it and saying, how do we think about revamping this? How do we think about changing this? And Pluto in the fifth house, if you have children, it could be a bit of maybe a power battle with the children at first, letting them have their freedom and then make their own decisions, which might not seem very easy at first. You might be resisting that in some way, or vice versa. Maybe your children are really dependent on you, and then they're having to realize that they can no longer be. It might be a cycle like that. This is also, the creative house, the self-expression, the artistic house. So it might be that you feel the urge to create or be involved with some an artistic pursuit that you really enjoy during this time.
Or maybe a really passionate love affair that you
A
feel.
really passionate love affair, which
Yeah.
might not be all easy, because it might be a bit of drama attached at first.
No, the emotions that are attached to it will be really strong, is the reason I said
Very
passionate.
intense. Very
Very
intense.
intense.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention, in the fourth house, it's opposite the fifth house. So the transformations that happen at home will also change the 10th house of your public image.
Yes.
Fifth house is opposite the 11th house, which is about the groups and associations that you have outside of your immediate family environment or one-to-one relationships.
Yeah.
The fifth house is so interesting to have Pluto go through, because those latent talents that you discovered, your new ideas, all of the things that have gone on previously are starting to show up out in the way that you have fun, the way you express yourself outwardly. If this is I am, this is I create. It has an opportunity to transform your life really well, because you become who you were meant to be. You might find you to have a creative purpose. It will change your imagination, transform how you think about things, and allow you to create something truly powerful and unique. We know when we see a painting that's powerful and moves us. We know when we hear a piece of music that's powerful and moves us. So there will be a lot of artists that come out that have their art has an impact on a large group. And this will be partly why, because it transforms people into understanding the larger group dynamic, and their art speaks to a larger group. The other thing I want to mention is in Aquarius, there's this idea in astrology that what is personal is political. And what I mean by that is what affects one person affects many. And that's kind of what I'm getting to with the artist. What you find important, your art speaks to a larger group. It speaks to a larger issue. The other opportunity we have here is to have a transformative way of solving problems. So if you have an opportunity, like, the light bulb was invented, right? And that changed lives for everyone. Maybe not everyone. There are people in Africa that still don't have electricity, but they don't have water either. But there may be a way to solve that problem that comes out while Pluto is in Aquarius and in the fifth house. Someone gets very, very deeply creative and motivated in a way to do something for a group environment that's more profound than just a simple, I want to go play house, right? It's that kind of play. It's almost a purposeful, soulful purpose kind of play. Okay, we ready?
Yeah, sixth house, Pluto in the sixth house. Well, health. Look at your health. And in some ways, this might be, I mean, people again, they might go, oh, Pluto's in my sixth house, I'm doomed to have bad health. You know, it's not that. It might just be, you know, your routine, your nutrition, your health has to, your habits have to be re-examined. So, you know, maybe there's been a process of following fad diets or something like that. And Pluto's like breaking it down to say, you need to change the way you think about your health, change the way you have your routine and do it for the better, regenerate it. So it might be that you, you know, changing your diet to just incorporate good foods instead of having to like think about restricting, you know, that type of thing. Or it could be, how do I improve my health through yoga or other exercises that I enjoy, that I find helpful. It's also our work house, isn't it? The 9-to-5 job, the thing that we do every day. And not everyone has a 9-to-5 job, but you know, for those that do, this could be a time where you really are restructuring that part of your life. Like, do I like my job? Am I in the right job? Do I feel called to do this job? A lot of the times when Pluto is going through the sixth house, we can start thinking about, you know, really intensely what we are attracted to and what we feel that we want to do, because that's what Pluto's sort of bringing up for us. It's going down deep to look at the intense emotions within us that are linked to our vocation, our job. So, you know, a lot of the times people can go through sort of a crisis within their career and think, I don't know if this career is any longer for me. I don't know if it serves my purpose anymore. And you might look at doing something different with this transit. A lot of the things with Pluto that are associated with it as well, you might think about research, investigation. The other thing could be like psychological careers that could come up with, you've got Pluto moving through this house. You might feel like that's an important part of a job to you and going forward.
Psychotherapy would be very productive here, or a group, some sort of help group, like you know, AA and things like that will be very popular.
Yeah, that would be good. And one of the other things you mentioned this to me once, I think, about Pluto in the sixth house is other people taking control of you at work, which is really useful to think about.
Yeah, this is not, if you think about work, this is not the public title you have at work. This is the day-to-day obligations and duties, the things you have to do every day for your job, for your career. And, you know, if you have been shifting and changing throughout your life with Pluto going through these other houses, this is when it shows up as either a power and control struggle within yourself, and maybe you need to change your day-to-day obligations, duties, and for you to take better care of your health so that you spend some time on you, or you decide to actually pay attention to your day-to-day duties at work. But somehow it's going to transform. There's going to be this power struggle within yourself, but also it could be a power struggle with like your boss or someone like that. But that is asking you, what do you want to do day to day? What purpose does what I do day to day have? And is it a meaningful purpose for me? So going through the sixth house, Pluto is very serious about getting your day-to-day life in the order that you want. And when I say power control struggles, that's what I mean. If you're not following what yourself, if you are not the authority in your life that says, this is how I spend this time, then it's going to become an issue for you. Either you are procrastinating or somebody else is putting a lot of pressure on you to produce something that you are not ready to produce, that sort of thing. But it's going to transform. You're going to feel this power and control struggle. Maybe you're not spending enough time taking out the garbage. Maybe you don't take it out when it needs to be taken out, but you wait 2 or 3 days, and then you'll have bug problems, and the whole thing just snowballs. And that's one of the things to remember about Pluto in any of these houses. Small cause, big effect. So don't ignore things. Small cause, big effect. Next thing you know, you're overrun by termites because you didn't take out the trash. Imagine how silly that would be. All right, you ready to move on to Pluto in the 7th?
Yep, 7th house. Yep. Oh goodness, 7th house. Oh,
You're so funny.
understandably.
Oh goodness, 7th house.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people think that when they look at Pluto there, and let's be real. If you're in a relationship and Pluto is going to cross that descendant, there is a restructure, there is a change in that relationship. And it doesn't mean you're going to get divorced. I know lots of clients that have had this, or lots of people that I know that have had Pluto go over that part, but the relationship shifts, the relationship will transform. It will have to, it has to get rid of something to move on and evolve and grow. And this sometimes that means, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Sometimes that means that you might decide that the relationship is no longer for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship's doomed when it goes over this point. It just means that you are closing like one chapter and sorting out a part of it. And you know what? The people that I've seen that have had relationships where Pluto crosses that ascendant and it moves on after it's done the transit of that descendant, even not ascendant, their relationships are really strong afterwards. So they've changed in a really positive and good way. So it's examining your relationships with someone else. It might be your partner, it might be your spouse, it might be a business partner. It might be that you're single and you don't have a partner. So in that case, it's a time, I think, of going within and really focusing on your feelings on what I want from a relationship and how I want my relationships to be going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was just going to mention the business partnerships earlier, so you covered that.
Oh, right.
The Pluto can transform our relationships by transforming all of these other ideas that we've had personally for us. So it could be that we have grown in a way that, some relationships, they say we just grew apart. And when one partner transforms and the other partner doesn't, that's growing apart. Maybe you end up in a power control struggle because you want to go live in Wyoming and he wants to live in New York, right? So you get this power and control struggle. Hey, there's always a third option. We live in New York in the summer and we live in wherever I said Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
No, let's say Nevada, because it's warm in the winter, right? And so you split your time, but you have a better relationship then because both of you are getting what you want. So Pluto in the 7th house is maybe you join a couples therapy group and work that little issue out. Pluto in the 7th house will transform your partnerships, and that is whether any one-to-one relationship. It can transform them with your kids, your significant other, your business partner, any one-to-one relationship. But Pluto is asking you, what do I really want in relationships? Not what does your partner want? What do I really want? And what power and control do I have to bring that about? Well, you don't. You have influence. And to influence something means to state how you really feel about it, see where the common aspects are, and move it towards that in that direction jointly together, because we're dealing with some sort of partnership or relationship. Okay, we're ready for Pluto in the 8th.
Yes, Pluto in the 8th house. Now Pluto is quite at home in this house. He if you think about the symbolism of death and rebirth, the 8th house also has that. So you've got the planet of transformation and the house of transformation, the house of endings and beginnings. So there really is a shift when it moves into the 8th house. And the other thing to really think about is maybe your partner, if you have a partner and you're relying on their income, it might be that income changes in some way. So think about how other people are making money around you and how that affects you. So sometimes that could be your partner, your business partner. Sometimes it's that people are in jobs where they literally make contracts with other people to bring in money. That those type of areas might be needing to change in some way. And then you'll see sort of like we always say, little hints of how they're going to change, and then the breakdowns that can happen, and then the restructuring and the transformation. So, just remember that it's trying to make it better. It's giving you a gift after the process that's happened.
And this is shared resources because it's coming from this partnership. We've now moved up to the not interpersonal part of the chart, but into the relationship with others. I relate and we have. So if there's a shift in a personal resource, either yours or your partner's, then there is going to be a shift in the we have idea. But if you look, Aquarius, again, it's about groups. So whatever you have been doing in this house, or however you have been sharing resources, you've been sharing them with a number of people, not just one. So you might have several avenues of income that you share with others. So remember that too, just because if one ends doesn't mean another one. And you may be able to balance it out more by looking at the overall shared aspects, the ratios, the who's willing to give and who is not. But again, that power and control struggle can be there. Maybe you do end up in divorce and you and your husband have to divide your assets, and that often leads to a power and control struggle. But try to be aware of what the pattern is going forward in any negotiations, and you are the one with the power here. When Pluto is in a house, the house that it represents, you have some sort of power. You may not know what it is, but there is something there that gives you some sort of power. And in power and control struggles, we often find out what sort of power we have in a situation. This can also be about inheritance. Remember, shared resources. So it can also be about inheritance. It could be about a family inheritance, because that is a group you belong to. And it may be a family inheritance where you share with several other people. So remember the death and rebirths that can take place in the 8th house. And know that when one door closes, another door opens.
Yep.
I don't think I can say that often enough with Pluto.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I'm going to go to the 9th house now.
Yeah, 9th house. This is really going down deep with our belief systems and our spiritual journey and maybe our religious journey. You might have a whole set of beliefs that are up for change in some way. You might think that you might think you're an atheist, and you might find God. You might think that vice versa. You might shift from religious to spiritual beliefs in this time. It's discovering other ideas, a deeper philosophy, and sometimes these can be connected to long journeys. So it might be a time when you go to a ashram in India and develop a whole new outlook on life and what's important to you. And also education is really linked to this house as well. Not necessarily just studying a new subject, but mastering a subject. So it can be linked more to the higher education, the master's degrees, the degrees, PhDs, I'm on fire today, etc. So, think about if that's something that you've been wanting to do, but you've been ignoring. Pluto might now start saying, okay, now the shift and change has to happen.
And you're going to end up with some unique views of the world. This is about your worldview, and our beliefs dictate our worldview. So if you have a belief that needs shifting, it's going to shift so that your worldview can shift.
Yeah.
So where do you fit into the world? How do you want to fit into the world? What do you want to do in the wider world? All of those questions will come up during this time. What purpose do your religious views share with someone else's? Or what worldview do you have that is helpful or unhelpful to humanity as a whole, right? Power and control struggles again. If you have any limiting views, limiting worldviews, those are going to come up for review. And that includes racism, prejudices, anything that does not allow for a broader worldview where it's all inclusive of all of humanity. And don't forget, Aquarius is about all of humanity as much as it is about the group you belong to. It represents the entire human race. And if we're talking about animals, the entire animal race. So there's a lot going on with Pluto in Aquarius. And in the 9th house, it's going to broaden those ideas about who humanity is. For long distance travel, you might go live somewhere else for a long time, since Pluto is going to be up here for 20 years. And that will be a transformative experience. I watched a movie recently about a guy who went and lived in the Amazon and trained a cat, like a wild cat, got it when it was a kitten.
Yeah.
So, he mothered it, and then he had to teach it to live in the wild. So to for food and all this stuff. It was a complete rehabilitation of this cat. And, it was pretty sad, because while I'm watching this, he gets one and it ends up dying in the middle of him teaching it to live in the wild. Then he got another one and he was successful. And the emotional transformation he went through with both the first one and the second one was just humongous. And he was able to live in a normal environment again after all of that. He had proved himself worthy.
Yeah.
And that he actually did fit in. But he had to become a cat first.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
very Pluto.
Yeah, it was very moving. Think about the emotional attachments you have to your worldview too. There's going to be stuff you need to let go of so that you can transform into more of who you're meant to be in the world. So if you have any emotional attachments to ideas, and if you don't have any real reason for believing what you believe, if it's just the way it's always been in your family, or the way your mom and dad taught you to believe, how someone else told you fit into the world, those are the ones that are easily reviewed. And if they don't serve you anymore, you can just simply let them go. Now that's more difficult than it sounds, but there are ideas here that you can let go of easily. And Pluto will welcome that. You mentioned earlier how Pluto always leaves you with a gift.
Yeah.
So Pluto is going to gift you with something when he leaves the 9th house or leaves Aquarius. And that in itself is a reason to take this idea of, do I have any ideas or do I have any beliefs that are no longer relevant for me or weren't mine at all to begin with? Okay, you ready? For Cap in the 10th house?
10th house. Yeah, Pluto going through here. Gosh, I don't think I'll ever experience this one either. Won't live long enough. So if you're having, these Pluto is so slow moving, so you're not going to deal with all these houses in your lifetime. But this is really important. This is really big when it gets to the MC. It's a time where I think you have you might feel like, I really want to do something important. I want to be known to do something important. I feel like I've got to use my career for the greater good, or transform people or help. But so be careful, I think, with your intentions, because obviously Pluto has a lot to do with karma as well. So how you're using your intentions during this time is going to be important. With Pluto in Aquarius, what we want to be doing is making the changes for the greater good, for humanity, for the people. So you need to be seen in doing that in some way, with it going over that part of the chart of our reputation and what we're known for. Needs to incorporate a sense of, well, what can I do that can be seen, that can then help the world around me in some way as well.
So one of the things we haven't mentioned is that Pluto requires a higher level of ethics and a higher level of honesty than any other planet in your chart. And in the 10th house, it will be ethical. You need to be highly ethical and highly honest upfront. But also, while I say that, you need to keep in mind how, when I say honesty and all that stuff, you need to keep in mind that this is what you're showing to the public. So it's good to be honest, but you can't be so honest. Brutal honesty is not what he's calling for. Understanding, compassion, truth. And you may get in some sort of power and control struggle in your career over the 20 years. And you were saying you would never experience this. Everyone can think about what age they'll be in 20 years.
Yeah.
And you'll know whether you'll experience this in any other sign or not. So it would take, for Taurus, it would take more than half of 248 years for Pluto to move back into Taurus. However, it can be in the first house. So we're not talking about the signs in this video. We're talking about the houses, what is in the house. And if you locate your natal Pluto, which this one happens to be here, you will know what phase of your Pluto evolution you're in. And that's something else we haven't mentioned, is Pluto is a part of your evolutionary growth.
Yes.
So there's some reason that he is in your 10th house. If he's in your 10th house, there's some reason he's there.
Yeah.
And it's going to offer you some sort of ability to have a more powerful influence. And that is partly because it's in the 10th house, but partly also because, as Annalene said, you want to think about what purpose your career, your work, your public image has for the wider good, for the groups you belong to, or the family, your tribe. And I heard recently that people are getting annoyed with people using tribe, but tribe is more encompassing than family. Right?
Yeah.
You're not related to everybody in the tribe, but yet you still feel like you're a part of them. So the 10th house is very powerful. Pluto is very powerful. Aquarians often have unique jobs, unique roles to play. And they usually involve service to a group or service to a cause. So this will be very interesting to see it go through your 10th house, but it will take 20 years. So this is a long-term career path, long-term public image building experience. It's a long term. Okay, we're ready?
Yes, I was just thinking this is a chart for David Beckham, so we'll be interested to see how it plays out for him, won't it? Because
Yeah.
you know, if you're on the right path, then this could be a real time of, you know, like the karma coming back, the recognition, the success. If you're not, then it might be a career change as well. So we're going to watch the space with March 2023.
I could see him becoming involved in humanitarian causes.
Yeah, might be. So it'd be very interesting to see. And he's got Pluto in the 6th house. So, you know, it's like, it could be that his work changes throughout his life. So,
and just so you guys know, if any of these names, if there's the people are still alive, you know, research them on the news and see what's happening in their life, because Pluto's not going to be subtle. Pluto's going to be visible. The Pluto transformations are going to be visible in people's lives and in the news and that kind of stuff. So
maybe he'll become Sir David Beckham this year.
Oh, could be.
With the people.
He's going to have that trine here soon.
Okay. Well, 11th. Should we go to the 11th house?
Sure. Okay. This is the chart for Lucy Lawless, and she has Pluto in the 11th house with an Aries ascendant. And this is kind of interesting because Pluto in the 11th house is sextile at 00. It's sextile Saturn in the, Aries in the 1st. And it is about the groups she belongs to. And, you know, it could literally be that she becomes, again, these two are public figures. So it's easy to imagine them becoming involved in humanitarian causes.
Yeah.
Influences over a large group of people, having influence over a cause. Olivia Newton-John just died. And she actually created a cancer medical facility in Australia. And, you know, people love Olivia Newton-John, right? Yeah. But she had an effect on a group of people. And that may be one of the other things to point out is groups are fluid. So Olivia Newton-John had cancer. She became a part of I Have Cancer group. And then she created this whole foundation that raises money for cancer awareness, created a hospital, all of those things, right? So it's a matter of the influence you can have. And often when you have influence as a public figure, you have influence over groups. Right? So again, the ethics, the honesty, the support. So think about, again, the emotional attachments. Pluto isn't very happy in the 11th house, but Aquarius is exceedingly happy. So you have this opportunity to influence groups and to make yourself known more widely. So this might have been about your career here. This is about humanity itself. This is about having influence over actual human beings, not control and power like it is up here, but influence over actual human beings.
Yeah, it's a house of groups and associations and friendships. So with Pluto moving into that house, you might feel there are some friendship groups that no longer serve a purpose in my life. And you may also find new groups, interesting groups. You might join. It doesn't necessarily have to be a friendship. It could just be, like work colleagues or groups or, meetups, people that meet up and do an activity. So it might be that you're attracted to join new groups, form new groups, and make new associations during this time. I think, there is usually the Pluto, the breakdown for the breakthrough, for the change. So it might be that, there is a change in your friendship circles in some aspects as well. It's also the house of your hopes and wishes and your dreams. So it might be, it might be that you actually take on a whole new set of dreams, a whole new outlook as to what you want. There might be an event that causes you to change your views on what you want in life.
Or what you're capable of producing. The other thing Aquarius rules is the internet. The 11th house rules the internet. And so, you know, you can see, and representing friends or representing associates is, you know, we've got all these social networks now. You don't know these people.
Yes,
but you're part of Facebook, you're a part of Instagram, you're a part of all of these things. And that's a wider view of the world. And they're all associates. They're all not associates like in you work with them, but they're friendships. They're not even friendships really. But you can expect the internet and all of these social networks to go through a massive restructuring. And I don't mean a little bit. It's possible the internet itself, the connectivity that we have now changes, and everyone is so used to being able to connect in this way. It's also it's not really connecting. And so Pluto is going to come through here and say, what is the purpose of this Facebook friendship? What is the purpose of Facebook? What is the purpose of posting on Instagram, right? So that may change. Cryptocurrency, I'm pretty sure, will not become the way we use money because of this issue with the internet. And it could be a massive restructuring of how we socialize. And that is what these social networks are for, is to socialize. So with the restructuring, what did you call it? The transformation of the internet and the death and rebirth process is going to be interesting where the internet comes out. And, you know, I'm in disagreement with some astrologers by talking about money changing, but that's just is. I see the internet being the problem for that, being the issue. And people are just not ready to, you know, they'll pay their bills online, but they're not going to really change money. They're not ready to change money. And we've seen lately how easily that can fail. Cryptocurrency by huge companies that have made millions of dollars just falling apart and being worth nothing and having nothing. So, you know, that could be part of this. We're already feeling Pluto in Aquarius. Okay.
Yeah. The story of the next year and a half.
Yeah, back and forth. That will be, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that in the end, but that is going to be an interesting process. And it is a process. But let's go on to Pluto in the 12th house.
Yeah, the 12th house. Well, we can
well, it is there. Hold on a minute.
At the beginning. Was it slide 1 maybe?
No.
Well, anyway, we could talk about it.
It's one of them.
It'll be moving on to the outside of house number 12. So if you have Aquarius in your 12th house, that means that Pluto is moving into that part of your chart and that part of your life. And the 12th house is the stuff that's hidden away, the stuff that's deep psychological work. It could be a spiritual place. It can be everything else in the chart that's not anywhere else falls into this house is how some people sum it up. And with a transit going through here, it's asking you to clear away your internal garbage, your rubbish, the things that have things that you need to get rid of before it goes into the first house. And then you can rebuild the self. So before you can look at rebuilding the self, you need to think about going down deep into the psychological. Often there can be like mental health breakthroughs with this 12th house, because it's asking us to go deep and spend time looking at transforming our feelings and looking at our emotions. And whereas the 6th house can be quite physical, the 12th house can be quite mental. So it might be that we actually start restructuring some bad mental health habits that we've had, or might be the time to look at therapy and transform in that way. That whatever you hide away, because the 12th house can be hidden, might be forced to come to the surface at this time, and you might be forced to examine it in a way that you can then move on.
So it's kind of apropos of the 12th house that things kind of disappear into there, and that chart just disappeared. The chart,
yeah, exactly. It's hidden away.
And the chart is actually for Baron Trump, and I find it interesting that his chart just disappears from the slideshow with Pluto in the 12th house.
Yeah,
so,
that's funny.
Whatever that means. So Pluto in the 12th house is actually very inward driven, introspective. It's easily ignored until it's not.
Yeah.
So there's this transformation of your subconscious. It is a karmic placement. So you could be letting go of anything from the past, including past lives, and getting ready to move so you can move forward in the next one. So you may be cleaning up. Pluto wants you to finish up stuff, put into practice what you actually believe, your truth, whatever that may be. It is not a good time to use deception to gain power control over others, because it'll end up coming back and biting you in the but it is easily, your power is kind of hidden. It's so deep inside of you. And I was talking with Emmeline earlier, and Pluto in Aquarius is like finding humanity's soul.
Yes.
We're going to find humanity's soul. And that's a lot of what he's doing in Pisces, or sorry, in the 11th or 12th house, is looking for you to, he wants you to look in your soul. He wants you to transform your relationship with your inner being, who you are going to be when he comes back into the first house. He wants you to, if you, like I said before, if you think you've gone deep, go deeper.
Yeah, definitely with the 12th house.
Well, that was fun.
Yes. Yeah, that was good. It was good to get this video out for everyone. As I said, we did get some good feedback with the Saturn one. So it's good that we can help with 2 major planets changing in 1 month. It's good to see.
And of course, after we do these videos, we always think about the things that we didn't say, or
of course,
all of that stuff. Think of the things that we say more metaphorically than as absolutes. And even the houses have more meaning than we've discussed in this video. And you're welcome, more than welcome, to ask either one of us questions and get an idea of what this really means. But the other thing is if you have some deep questions about your chart, it would be a good idea to get a reading. And you can contact Emmeline at emmelinesastrology.com, right?
Yep. And
you can contact me at 180 Dorothy, DOROTHY at gmail.com. And either one of us would be happy to help you get a reading. I have recently gotten excited about. I do a thing called chart rectification, because to find out where your houses are, we have to have your time of birth. And
Yeah.
I do chart rectification, which allows me to find your time of birth. So if you don't have your time of birth, you can still get a reading.
Mhm.
And the more information we have, the more thorough your reading would be. So, and I can do this for anyone wanting a reading with Emmeline or with me, it doesn't matter. Emmeline personally experienced this recently.
Yes, you were able to help me with a family member getting their birth time. So it's amazing. I think when sometimes it's really hard to try and do it manually, but there is a really good software that you've got to grips with and you use it really well. So anyone that needs that, I always send them your way, because you're very good at by helping find the birth time. Because it is quite sad if you don't have it, because you can't get involved with the astrology the same way that everyone else can. So yeah, there is a solution. There is a way to get it.
Yeah. All righty.
Yeah.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, any comments? Let us know. What are your observations about Pluto going into Aquarius? You know, obviously we can look back to the last time it happened. That was an eventful time with France and the US, people taking their power, you know, the communities finding their voice and not wanting to be dictated to anymore. So, you know, what's your voice? What do you think is important? Think about that as well. What can you do for the best of everyone else?
Historically, this was after the Revolutionary War, right? Yeah, after the Revolutionary War, and you know, the US gained its independence. Okay, we became US citizens. Okay, but all the men that fought in that war, and women, the new government didn't pay them their wages. So then we had taxes come up. All these people are being taxed and they can't pay the taxes because the government that wants the taxes has not paid them. So kind of a little dilemma there, right? So transformation takes time. That took time. But the citizens were actually going to the courthouses and not allowing them to hold court because they didn't want them to foreclose on their property, right? So the world is different now. I think this is going to be more not that sort of thing, more like cyber war and stuff like that, where a lot of people are at odds on the internet or, you know, using technology. Saturn is Aquarius is very attached to technology and innovations. We may see some really interesting innovations come out now. Yeah, but I do digress.
That is true.
Like I said, we always think about what we didn't say.
I know it's going to be an interesting period for sure to see how it all works out. So hold on to your horses this month with March.
Yeah, March is a very interesting month.
Yeah, so if you feel like you need a reading, as I said, get in touch, and if you have any questions, put them below. We're happy to help any way we can.
Thank you, and we will also put our contact information when we load the video.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, well, thanks everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.